Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a hugely popular show in the 90s, spawned from a less than popular movie that went on to become a cult classic. After the run ended in 2001, there have been several interviews released from the creators, the actors, everyone involved, really dissecting the themes, the moods, and the purpose for certain things in the show. We here at the Turnout love amazing storytelling and feel that Buffy the Vampire Slayer exemplifies this. In the end though, every character is defined by the thing that they want and how the stories and challenges put before them keep them from their ultimate goal. In Buffy's case, she really wants a boyfriend. The entire idea behind Buffy the Vampire Slayer was taken from old monster movies, where the beasts would be chasing down cheerleaders.
About 10 years ago, I had an idea for a movie. I'd seen a lot of horror movies, which I love very much, with blonde girls getting themselves killed in dark alleys, and I just germinated this idea about how much I'd like to see a blonde girl go into a dark alley, get attacked by a big monster, and then kill it.
He turned that cliche on its head, subverted expectations, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer was kind of revolutionary at the time, eventually becoming a feminist icon. But Buffy as a character doesn't accept her fate as past Slayers have. She thinks she can have it all. She can fight evil and pursue a normal life.
If the apocalypse comes, beat me.
Looking at her life, however, and let's remember that she's a teenager for a lot of this series, she has a certain view of what a normal life looks like. Other girls her age are obsessed with clothes and fashion, and it's all for the benefit of being popular or getting boys to notice them.
Vamp nail polish?
Over?
So over.
Looking at her parents, especially her mother Joyce, their life was normal until a divorce turned their lives upside down.
It was cheerleading.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're taking that up again. It'll keep you out of trouble.
I'm not in trouble.
No, not yet.
Turning to her friends, trying to get a boyfriend or a girlfriend was pretty much at the front of their mind. And they were all normal, right? Xander and Cordelia, Xander and Anya, Willow and Oz, Willow and Tara, Giles and Ginny. Sure, many of these relationships came and went, but many of them were also lasting relationships that spanned several episodes or even seasons. Hell, she could even look at her enemies and see deeper relationships, like Spike and Drusilla, or Angel and Darla. And then at the center of it all, there's Buffy, constantly in search of what she thinks is a normal life. And to Buffy, this means a boyfriend. Someone to love and keep her grounded. But as the Slayer, this is next to impossible to find. Before we dive too deep, let's first address Angel. As the show writes it, Buffy and Angel are basically soulmates, destined to be together. But they've taken a page from Romeo and Juliet, knowing that them being together would only end in tragedy. Their relationship represented that first huge love that you have for someone. The one you think that you'll just die if it ever ends. But then you realize it doesn't and you can move on. You never don't love that person, but you realize that the one who taught you love may not be the person you're supposed to actually end up with.
I know everything that you did because you did it to me.
Speaking of which, Angel definitely taught Buffy to love in a huge way. Their love was so deep and went through so many ups and downs that it became much harder for Buffy to actually love anyone else. She put up walls that were impossible for anyone to break down, even though she was searching for a boyfriend the whole time during the show.
What's the deal, Buffy? You seem really...
And this is definitely a reoccurring theme, an ongoing thing in the show and the movie. Let's talk about all of Buffy's attempts at a boyfriend. In the movie, she dates Jeffrey Kramer, the typical jock who really just kind of wanted to be with her because she was a cheerleader and she was popular. You can chalk a lot of that up to being young and not necessarily being into her prophecy yet. After she is the Slayer, of course, she drops Jeffrey like a hot potato, knowing he's definitely not the one. In season 1 of the show, there actually seems to be a little bit of chemistry between Buffy and Xander.
I'm Buffy. I'm new.
Xander is me. Hi.
Oh, thanks.
Though he obviously falls right into the friend zone. Angel becomes the obvious love interest, though she does go out with Owen Thurman, who is a little too into the danger of what it means to be a Slayer. She ends up having to break up with him so that she doesn't get him killed.
I'm sure this isn't exactly what you had in mind for a first date.
Yeah. I was hoping maybe we'd finish up at Ben and Jerry's.
We still could.
No. I think I'll just walk home.
But in season 1, she does see a few other boys kind of off and on, because at that point, Angel isn't really more than a crush. In season 2, she kind of gives into trying to be popular and hanging out with Cordelia. She ends up going out with Tom Warner and gets sucked into a snake cult. She tries to look backward in her life to her old days before she was a Slayer, hoping maybe there would be love. There she finds Billy Fordman, who's come to Sunnydale, but of course, he betrays her because he really hopes to be a vampire.
We all have flaws.
I'm still a little fuzzy on exactly what yours is. I think it has to do with being a lying scumbag.
Before he's turned into a fish monster, Buffy goes out with Cameron Walker, but of course he tries to take things a little too far and tries to have his way with her in his car. She punches him in the nose, and then of course she gets blamed for leading him on. And obviously during season 2, she's continuously trying to deny herself Angel until she finally gives in to him, and things go poorly as he loses his soul.
But on a personal level, this is a show about I slept with somebody and now he doesn't call me anymore.
Angel?
Season 3 is actually one of the few seasons where her romantic interests don't take the huge spotlight outside of Angel, because he's returned from hell, and largely this is part of her not being able to let go of him. She does try to go out with a boy named Scott Hope.
I've given a lot of thought. Some might say too much thought to how I might be a part of your life.
But kind of like Owen Thurman in season 1, she decides it's better to not date him so that she doesn't end up getting him hurt. Also, she's really just kind of not ready because the hurt from Angel is still too fresh. Going into season 4, there's a huge change for Buffy. She's going into college, she's ready to experience new things. Also, Angel has now left the series because he got his own, meaning he's not going to stick around and be a central figure anymore, even though the ghost of their relationship still haunts the show. You can tell that she's actually kind of ready to move on, because she ends up having a nice walk with Eddie while she's on the hunt. And it actually seems like she might end up with that boy. But of course, he's eaten by vampires the very next scene. But she does meet a boy named Parker. This boy hurts her, makes her feel stupid, because he pays all the attention to her that she really, really wants, but then turns it into a one-night stand.
Is that all it was?
What else was it supposed to be?
Never calls her back. Thinks she's silly for thinking it was anything more. And right after that, she meets Riley. And she throws herself into a relationship with Riley to escape all of that hurt she was feeling. And he's honestly the normalest normal that ever normaled. You know, except for the fact that he's a member of the Initiative. But if it had not been for Riley and their relationship, she wouldn't have trusted the Initiative, and season 4 would have really gone a completely different way. Despite the Initiative, he's still stable, grounds her, and is exactly the way that Buffy always dreamed love could be. Except that she didn't love him.
I should go home.
Season 5 is when we really double down on the not love with Riley, especially after Buffy seems to have a thing for both Dracula at the beginning of the season and Ben somewhere around the middle of the season. This is also where Spike starts professing his love for her.
Clear out of here and spark this thing. Get over it.
But she's not really down enough to let him even be a factor at this point.
I won't forget it.
But when Riley leaves shortly before Buffy's mom dies, you can make the argument that this is when Buffy is just losing too much. Those two people, her mom and Riley, were the ones that made her feel normal and led her to the choice of sacrificing herself at the end. I always wondered what she would have done in that moment if Riley was actually still around. Season 6, however, is when Buffy returns from the dead. Spike is still around, still in love with her, and so she kind of takes advantage of that. She can't bear the thought of being alone, and she feels dead. So Spike becomes a suitable distraction from the pain she's going through.
Do you even like me?
Sometimes.
The only one she feels she can be honest with. But after loving so deep with Angel and having such a normal relationship with Riley, Buffy is looking for destruction in her life in Spike. And since her desire for companionship is so strong, she'll take whoever she can. And in her mind, nobody would want her except for Spike. Going into season 7, Buffy is largely solitary, leaning more on friendship than any kind of romantic attachments or flings. She flirts with the idea of getting with Robin, but he kind of wasn't interested, which was fine because she actually did need to focus on her family and friends and not dying again. As a quick aside, I want to go beyond the Buffy TV show and talk about both Angel Season 5 and the Buffy Season 8 comic. In Angel Season 5, there's an episode of Angel where he and Spike both hear that Buffy is in Italy, and they kind of go on a crazy fun quest to find her, so each of them can prove to her that they are her one true love. But when they get there, she's having a grand old time, partying with demons, not a care in the world. They decide not to bother her because she seemed happy, finally. I actually really dug the way that episode ended. Both of them loved her so much that they didn't want their love to hurt her any more than it already had. In season 8 of the Buffy comics, Buffy actually decides that maybe it's the fact that it's men that just don't work out. She experiments with a young Slayer named Satsu, so at least she's trying something different this time. It didn't stick, but it was nice to see even more growth for a character who was so set on what it meant to be normal that she's like, let's give this a try and see what happens. The following scene in the comic with Buffy sharing her experience with Willow as well was pretty touching, and I feel brought them together as friends even more. So if you take a look at Buffy's search for boyfriend or search for companionship, it's pretty easy to see how central this need was to her individual story and to the series overall. And now that she's gone through the kind of love you can lose yourself in, the kind of love that smothers you, and the kind of love that hurts you, at the end of the series, Buffy decides that love just isn't the thing that she needs as much as she thought. She finally realizes she doesn't need a boyfriend to be normal, because her normal is something only she can define. Buffy's need for companionship and romance is kind of left behind in Sunnydale, in the rubble. And as she leaves that behind, there are so many other possibilities before her. It's the core of Buffy's character growth. I think it's central to the setting and everything that Buffy the Vampire Slayer offers as a show. But we want to hear your thoughts on Buffy's search for love. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments. Don't also forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification so you always know when the Turnout releases a new video. And don't worry, we have plenty more Buffy videos coming at you soon. If you want to check out my ranking of the seasons of Buffy, definitely go check that out right here. I think you're going to really like that. Otherwise, I have been your host, Aloy. This has been the Turnout. Thanks for showing up.